Welcome to the Evolution Revolution. I am so thrilled that you're joining us today, and my name is Susan Allan. And as you know, the purpose of our show is to offer you tried and tested aspects of personal transformation and self-actualization. How are you going to have a life that's joyous and peaceful and healthy and successful if you have to try to figure it all out by yourself? That's exhausting. I did it. I do not advise it. So in our show, every time we're here, I have a different guest, and we bring you something that is really going to make a huge difference in your life. Today, I am thrilled. My special guest is my friend Mary Elliott. And Mary Elliott is a yoga teacher, a massage therapist, and she's just started doing aquatic body work, which is something brand new that I'm yet to hear about. And she lives in Santa Barbara. And one thing that's really wonderful about Mary, and I've known Mary for a very long time, is how adventuresome she is. So I invited her to come on the show because we're going to do role plays that you guys have been asking for such a long time. We're going to show you how this works in the kind of real-life situations you've dealt with. You've seen me come up in the years and years that I've been doing the column. You've seen me give answers to questions, but an answer is very different from a role play. You know, an answer is very different from, wading into the mess and then hearing Mary and I work through it and create peace. So that's what we're going to do today. And Mary, who is an outdoors woman, and she's like a great athlete, and she's always doing things in nature, she said yes, she would. So we're at the base of Mount Everest right now, and we are going to climb. And so we're going to show you some role plays. Basically, Mary is going to read the situation that one of you has asked about, or that somebody's asked about, any of my clients as well. And then I'm going to give some answers, and in most cases, we're going to not only have me give some answers, we're going to do some role plays. So you can record this show because I would imagine you've got a situation very similar to the ones that we're going to do today, and you can listen to this again and again and again. Listen to the tonality, listen to how I handle any challenging things that Mary may want to say, and we're off, right?
Right.
Ready to go. Okay, so what's the first scenario we're going to dig our
Let's see, Susan,
into?
the first scenario, a woman asked if she should tell her fiancé what his mother said to her.
And I love what you said last night when we were talking about this. Mary said to me, well, it depends what her intention is, doesn't it? Because it's all about intention. So if the young woman is perfectly happy to end her engagement, she doesn't need me to make recommendations, right? If she wants to have a fabulous marriage in the near future, however, then she has to be very conscious about how she's discussing this. She has to really pay attention. So the trick is she's got to calm herself down. So Ari, if you would show the 6-part chart, that would be very helpful because then I can quickly explain it to you. So the first step, of course, we know is self-empathy. And that's what I'm talking about now, that she's got to calm herself down first. And an example of how she does that, thank you, Ari, that's great. An example of how she does that is when she hears the mother-in-law-to-be speaking to her, she may feel angry that her need for respect isn't met. She may feel furious that her need for appreciation for all that she does isn't met. She may feel hopeless that her need for a great extended family could ever be met because she wants, obviously, she's marrying this guy, she wants to have a great extended family. It's coming right after Easter and Passover, so presumably she's just seen this woman again, and now she probably is feeling exhausted because her need for peace isn't met, right? So that makes sense. Okay. So the way that I would handle that is I would say, honey, I had a conversation with your mom when she was here for the holiday, and in the past we've had conversations about this, and I know you feel very triggered. because you want me to be able to create a relationship with your mother that works, right?
Yes, I do.
And you've kind of told me that you're sick and tired of hearing me complain about your mom. You want me to make peace and make sure that I'm responsible for it, right?
Yes, please.
Okay. So I want to tell you that I've decided that I can appreciate your mother simply because she's your mother. And I can just get that. That thanks to your mother, you're here, you're alive, you were born. She doesn't have to do another thing. And so from now on, I'm just going to, every time I see her, I'm just going to be in my heart, and I'm just going to really appreciate her. So does that work, sweetie?
Wow. Yes, that would be wonderful.
Okay. And then I have to remind myself that.
Yeah.
And you have to remind yourself too. So if you make a promise to take the high road, you know, you're going to have lots of chances to go back on that low road. So you have to just remind yourself. She's not doing this because she's a slave. She's not doing this because he's making her. She's not doing this because the mother is making her. She's doing it because she's an intelligent woman who wants to have a terrific life.
Absolutely.
Okay, beautiful. What do we have
Great.
next? Great.
Next, example, there's a guy whose friends don't like his girlfriend, and he's wondering how he can handle that.
Okay. So in this scenario, let's imagine she doesn't like those friends and they all went out together. So I'm the boyfriend and Mary is the girlfriend, and they just spent an evening with a number of couples, and for her it was like walking through hell. Okay?
Absolutely.
So now again, I have to calm myself down. And now, Ari, if you'd show the 6-part chart, just for a moment, take a look at empathy. So empathy is where I put all my attention on what the other person is feeling and needing, and making sure that the other person is peaceful and calm before I start talking about my own ideas. Thank you, Ari. So again, I calm myself down, silent self-empathy. What am I feeling? What am I needing? Breathe. What am I feeling? What am I needing? Breathe. And I'm calm. And now I've got to calm my girlfriend down, who's a little bit freaked. So, honey, I can imagine that you didn't have much fun last night. You really were a good sport, but it wasn't really fun for you, was it?
No, not at all.
Yeah. And the last time we went to a sports bar with all those guys and their dates, you were pretty brave, but it was pretty unpleasant for you, right?
It is. And I don't feel like I can be myself when I'm not unhappy.
Yeah, and I know you really don't enjoy sports. Basketball doesn't really do it for you, and football doesn't, and baseball, and like there's not like a time when there's going to be some sport in a sports bar that's going to be exciting for you.
No.
Okay.
No.
So it seems to me that what we ought to do is find a way that you and I can be together, and I can include you with those friends and include those friends with us because they've been along, a big part of my life. But find something that has absolutely nothing to do with sports, but maybe has something to do with other things that you do enjoy that they might enjoy. So how does that sound?
That sounds great.
Like a big relief. So this is a huge relief, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah. So just by saying you never have to go to a sports bar again, that makes you feel like 20 pounds lighter, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, you're like helium floating. Yeah. Okay, got it. So my thought is, because you love music and I love music, and we always go to the Santa Barbara Bowl, we always go to some events, maybe what I could do is ask you to check what's coming in the next couple of months that you would love to see, what groups you would love to see. Also look at the other venues around town, look at the Shumash Casino. I know the guys would love the Shumash Casino. I don't know if you could stand the cigarettes. But any place where there's really great entertainment, let's make a list of you pick 6 of them maybe that you'd enjoy going to. I'll pitch it to the guys, and then we can do something else when we're together. Does that sound fun?
That sounds fabulous.
Okay.
I would like that.
Yeah, and in the future, if there's something that I suggest that we do with my friends, and in advance that you'd much rather do something else, that's okay too, because as long as we have enough time when we're together, just the 2 of us, and as long as there's time when you are willing to do things with my friends and their wives and girlfriends, we don't have to be attached at the hip 24/7. Okay?
That sounds great.
Cool.
Yeah.
Great.
Thanks.
So this is all about finding a solution that works for everybody. In this case, notice I'm making a request. A solution can be a request or an offer. In this case, I'm making a request. Would she pick about 6 different opportunities, musical events, something? Now, that doesn't mean that she couldn't then come back to me and say, well, what about spending the weekend at blah, blah, blah? You guys surf, and I don't care if I don't surf. I'd love to go to the beach. Maybe we just want to go and spend a 3-day weekend at the beach, all of us. Do you want me to find out about that? So she could make a counteroffer. It's, again, finding an easy balance between 2 people, but always looking for how to calm yourself down before speaking, and always making sure that you are calming the other person down. And a lot of people get confused because they've worked with me, and there's a difference between coaching a client, where I don't actually have to wait till somebody's calm. I've got to make sure they've learned something. It's different versus a family member, a friend, or heaven forbid, a boss, where you're not going to get anywhere because they haven't hired you as their coach. So unfortunately, you don't have the leeway that I do. And that's just the way it is. So what's the next one? What do we have?
The next example is a mother who learns that her son has broken up with his boyfriend, who mom knows hasn't been a very nice guy. He's not been very good to her son. So she has to handle this well so that there's no chance of her son reuniting with the boyfriend that he just broke up with.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
That's a great story. I remember my mother telling me a story about a guy that I had a date with, and my mother was on her super, super, super best behavior because she knew that if she indicated in any way that she didn't like this guy, I would marry him. And I actually have a friend in New York who told me a story about this guy that she was involved with, who was like a nightmare on top of a nightmare on top of a nightmare. And I said to her at the time, I said, wow, given the relationship you had with your mother at the time, it's a miracle you didn't just show them and marry the guy. And she said to me, well, actually, I did.
Oops.
So the reason we're doing this role play is, as a parent, it is so important how you handle this kind of a situation. You have to be so subtle. You cannot, celebrate the fact that your son has now dumped this creep, because you never know if people are going to get back together. You never know if this person is going to become a nice person, realize what he's lost, and now you will have, you've got this awkward thing in the middle of you and your son. Or if you and your son don't have the best relationship in the world and you start criticizing this guy, again, there's a huge probability that he could just reunite with him just to show you. So you have to be very, very deft, and that's what I'm going to show you. So again, I'm the mom. I have to calm myself down, to do silent self-empathy. In this case, I have to not look like I'm celebrating because I needed my son to be with someone who appreciates him. I wanted my son to be with a guy who is really kind to him. I was really concerned because here, I do nice things for my son, and then he was sharing them with this creepy guy. So it's not about me. It is truly about my son. So I calm myself down, and then I say, oh, gosh, I can imagine that you feel very torn about this. On the one hand, you probably really miss him. And then on the other hand, you're probably relieved because he was so moody so much of the time. And you're such a happy guy. So is that how you feel, honey?
Absolutely. A little conflicted.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I would guess that it's really difficult for you because you were spending all your time together, all your free time, and I know you had a lot of fun. You went on some great trips.
Yeah, it's a little lonely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know you really loved his dog, so that's probably difficult too, because you had a dog and you had a boyfriend, and it was, you spent a lot of time hoping that it would all work out. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hope is a big part of it.
Yeah, I'm so sorry that you have to go through this. I really hate to see you going through that kind of pain. Is there anything else you wanted me to know about it?
It was just very challenging. I think it went on longer than probably was healthy.
Oh, I'm
But
sorry.
but it's still really hard.
Yeah,
It's hard to be
yeah.
out in the world alone again and starting from the beginning again and being single. It's not easy.
Yeah, I certainly understand. And gosh, I'm wondering what I could do that would really be fun, that maybe would, distract you, or even let's go someplace where there's some terrific people for you to meet. So first of all, we could make some plans for next weekend or the weekend after if you're free. And you let me know where you'd like to go. If it's someplace where I would fit in too, that would be terrific. I'd be delighted to take you. Just, you know, let's go somewhere, let's go have a good time, and who knows? You never know. You might meet somebody. And at the same time, why don't we spend a little bit more time together since you're free now? Because when you're in the next great relationship, obviously you won't have that much time. So maybe that would be a nice distraction for you. We could go out to some great restaurants that we haven't been to together. How does that sound?
That sounds nice.
Okay.
I like that.
Okay, honey. Well, terrific. Just, keep me posted. And obviously, anytime you want to come and spend the weekend, if we're not traveling, that would be great too, because you're in Los Angeles and I'm in Santa Barbara. It's not that far. So anything I can do to make it easier, just let me know.
Thanks, Mom.
And of course, that's the point. When there's somebody that you love who's in pain, the bottom line is there really isn't anything else that you're there for except to try to make, as Marshall Rosenberg says, how to make his life more wonderful, how to make her life more wonderful. Now, the flip side of that is you have to make sure that if you're offering these things, you're doing them because you really want to. You never offer anything to anybody unless you truly want to, because then your energy won't be that positive, loving energy. And that's really important, because I have a lot of clients who say to me, well, what am I supposed to do? Do I have to do that? And of course, the important point is, if you think you have to do that, some nice thing, and you're coming from the do I have to do that place, it's going to be a disaster. So don't even think about doing nice things for people unless you really want to. And of course, don't think of doing it to get something back, because that is the worst kind of disaster. People can see the strings, they can just see them.
Absolutely.
So only in this case because, she really loves spending time with her son. In the case before, because that guy really likes going to concerts with his girlfriend and he doesn't want her to suffer, So be really clear about that. Okay.
Great. So the next one.
Yes, the next one.
There's a young woman who's in a job that she absolutely hates, but she can't leave the job because she needs to be there for a year to have that on her resume. So how does she make the best of being in a job that she hates when she's feeling really stuck?
And she feels like she's enslaved.
And she feels like she's
or like an
enslaved.
indentured servant,
Yes.
maybe. Oh my God. So that's a horrible feeling. Many of us have had an experience where we made a choice and we knew very soon that it was a really lousy choice. Maybe we didn't have a better choice. Maybe we didn't have three choices, one that was great and one that was lousy and one that's in the middle. But we've made choices and now we have to kind of stick with it for one reason or another, right? And this is a very important skill to have. I mean, you've got to be able to control your mind. You absolutely have to. You can never enjoy a really successful life if you're triggered and then you're angry and then you roll around in being angry for a while and then you're triggered by something else and maybe that thing makes you happy, so now you're happy for a while. I mean, that is a recipe for disaster, and most people live their lives that way. I mean, Mary is one of the happiest people that I know. And that's a huge thing. That's huge. Yeah. That you have the mental discipline to look at the options you have, make a choice, and find a way to be happy with the choice. I think that truly is the most important skill that any of us can develop, which, thank God, I've developed. I give myself, as you know, 4.5 minutes or less to get back to peaceful.
Yeah.
Because, if you spend 5 minutes being angry, the world starts to know and bad things start to happen. Things start to crash and burn around you. And it's a vibrational
So
reactivity, right? So in this case, she's got to pull herself together. She's got to focus on her needs that will be met by staying. So for example, if she needs this on her resume, then when she's been there for a total of a year, and therefore she's free to leave, she'll be able to get a better job. So she can see this as a way to get a better job. If she stays and she does a good job and she really commits herself to staying rather than 1.5 feet out the door, then she could in fact stay and get a promotion and a raise. So she doesn't have to stay in this lousy job. She just has to stay in this job until she gets a raise there or a promotion there. Now, why do I say that she should not be out there looking for another job? That's because it's very easy for someone who's not doing a good job where she is and hates her job, and don't think that the bosses don't know that she hates the job. They always do. They can tell, just like your mother always could tell. Your boss can tell. And so then if she goes and gets another job, there's a high probability she's going to get fired. So then she wouldn't have the new job to use on her resume, and she wouldn't have this previous job to use on her resume because she would have been fired from it. So it's risky. The best bet is, if you're accepting a job, accept a job that you're willing to take for at least a year if you're young. You know, if you're young and you're starting out, make that decision because you understand that anything less than a year on a resume is really questionable. And of course, you know, it'd be nice if she could stay if it's a decent enough job. If she turns her head around, if she turns her attitude around, then she could stay at that company, get a promotion, get a raise, and she could be there for 2 or 3 years. And then by the time she leaves, she could leave for a great job. You know, let's say then she would have been working for 4 years or maybe 5 years. She could have a great job and a great career. So the whole thing about this story is how to focus on what you really want and not put attention on all the negative stories in our heads, and just focus on what you want, which in this case, for her, is a good job and a lot of money and a great career and a really satisfying life. So that makes sense?
That makes sense.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. Okay.
What else you got?
You ready for what's next?
I do.
Okay, so our next example is a man who's been married for 30 years and he is bored to tears. He's not cheating on his wife, but he needs to improve it. So he needs some help.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, you know, depending on what part of your brain is most active, you may be someone who's, you know, steady as she goes, steady as he goes, and loves long-term, monogamous, committed relationships. But even then, 30 years is a very long time. You know, 30 years living with the same person, only being with that person, that's a long time. So how do you spice it up? How do you make it fun? How do you make it fresh? How do you make it alive? That's really what a lot of really excellent long-term marriages and relationships have in common. At least one partner is capable of being very creative. And so in this case, that's what I would say. You know, he would need to figure out what his wife's key needs are. So in this particular case, let's imagine, you know, they've got some children and some grandchildren. Because, you know, a couple in Santa Barbara that have been married for 30 years, pretty much they always do, you know. Great place to raise a family. So let's imagine they have 2 children, and let's imagine that one of those children has 2 grandchildren, you know, two children, right? And presumably in this case, let us guess that there's nothing that would make his wife happier than spending quality time with her children and grandchildren, right?
Right.
Okay. So then I would have him again use empathy, all about his wife. Honey, I know that we've been really careful about money. We haven't wasted money. We've been really attentive. We want to be sure that we have everything that we need, or if the kids get into trouble, then we could help them as well. But I think we've been so frugal for so long, I would imagine you would really be excited if we could spend some time doing something fun with the kids and the grandkids.
I'd love it. It's time. Yeah.
Beautiful. Do you have any thought of what you would like to do?
I would love to get a motorhome and take everybody traveling for a while.
Well, that's a cheap date. That sounds fantastic.
Or we travel and they come and join us, right?
No, but that's great. Wow.
Yeah.
We could definitely afford that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe what we would do is, rent the RV for the first go round, and if we really love it, we might decide we want to buy one. And we've got room at home to park it if we really wanted to do that.
And then we can go anywhere.
Well, I never knew that
regularly.
this was something that you would love to do.
Yeah, well, and then we can all be together and they can join us, or we can just go and
Wow.
spend some time on our own.
What a great idea. Do you have a sense of where you'd like to go?
I'd like to go to some of the national parks.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. Wow, that would be wonderful. Would you be willing to see what the national parks are and what's required for reservations, and find out when everybody's vacations are?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll start looking at motorhomes and rentals and purchases and all that.
That sounds great, and I'll see where the kids want to go, and we'll see if we can make it easy for them too.
Fantastic. Oh, I got to tell you, I'm so relieved. I thought you wanted to go on a Disney cruise. And I just thought, if Mickey was there at breakfast, I was not going to be able to keep my breakfast down. Much as I love Mickey, not for breakfast. This is great.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for suggesting
Wow.
it.
And, in this particular scenario, you never know what your partner, your friend, your boss would suggest when there's a problem. It's not about shoving the solution down somebody's face. It's always about co-creating a solution. And that's the real trick. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
The next
What's
one?
next? Let's see. There's a man who needs a new job, and he needs to keep the one he still has. He's interviewing and hasn't had a callback for a second meeting. How can he motivate them, the people that he interviewed with,
Right.
to get a callback?
Thank you. So that's a case. Now, in sales, Ari, if you show us the 6-part conversation, then I'll be able to explain to you guys about sales. So the 6-part has its own appropriate equivalent for selling and business and a career. But in fact, everything in life is motivating and inspiring in some way. When you do empathy, which is all about them in a personal relationship, in sales, it's all about the needs of the client. It's all about the needs of the customer. So it's not a personal thing anymore. It's about the business needs. When you do the next part, self-expression in a personal relationship, in selling, it becomes the presentation. So this is a Ferrari, and we're going to take a road test, but before you get into the Ferrari, let me tell you a little bit about it. So that's the self-expression, is a presentation when you're selling. Reflection and clarification is what you do in sales when you're dealing with considerations. The guy says, well, I'd buy a red Ferrari, but I really don't want a blue Ferrari. And I definitely don't want a black Ferrari. I can pay you with a check, and I could get the check to you by next Thursday, but I can't give you the money now. So those are the kinds of things in business. You have to get in the habit of working through those. And then finally, solution. In a personal relationship, it's, well, great, let's find out about RVs and a trip. And in sales, it's, okay, I'll go talk to the sales manager, and we'll see what we can do about the check and how quickly we can get you a red car. Thanks, Ari. That's perfect. So everybody who's mastered the 6-part, when they have a business reason or a career reason or a financial reason, they just have to make that, that kind of segue from personal explanations into business presentations. This guy didn't close the deal. This guy is stuck with somebody saying to him the equivalent of, well, I want a red Ferrari, not a blue, and definitely not a black one. And that's why they didn't call him back. So he's got to go back, he's got to rewind, figure out what it was that worked, that motivated them to see him in the first place for the first interview, to understand that either in the first interview or in the emails or phone calls after that, he lost them instead of closed them. And depending on what kind of a company it is, what his background is, all the different specifics, he's got to make sure that he basically sells it all over again because he didn't close it. Now, it's possible that he's just not a good match. You know, that happens. But it's amazing how a good salesman can get offered a job even if he doesn't know much about the company, doesn't know much about the product, doesn't live in the same town, all sorts of things. Because a good salesman shows up for an interview and most people in business say, I want that. You know, give me that. And in fact, I've been working with a client recently who I introduced to somebody, and she was not able to close it. And what happened is, in business, you will rarely hear a no. You will hear a maybe, or you'll hear next week or next month, but you rarely hear a no. So one of the things that you must learn to do when you're learning sales and when you're getting better and better at sales is push for the no or the yes. You know, that salesman of the Ferrari has to say, well, you know, okay, so we could get you a red Ferrari by next Friday. First of all, we have to figure out which model it is. And we have to figure out we have to figure out the financials, obviously, make sure that works. But all things being the same, would that be what you're looking for? To pick up a red Ferrari a week from today? And then you have to see where it goes. Because people who are new in sales tend to get very lost in the presentation. Well, let me show you about the clutch, and let me show you about the, you know, the trunk, and let me show you. Well, no. You're never going to sell a car if you spend all your time doing the presentation. At some point, you have to push yourself to the place where you're asking for a sale. And that's what this guy has to do. He's got to go back, figure out what it was about him that appealed to that company in the first place. Right? Okay. So now let's do a little role play about it.
Okay.
So let's imagine he gets on the phone because, you know, we can't do emails on a TV show, right?
Right.
So he gets on the phone and he picks up the phone and he says who he is. And he said, you know, we met about a week ago, and I'm really hopeful that we could have a second meeting so I can tell you more about how I would be able to sell your product. Because as we discussed, you're a manufacturer of XYZ, and I've been in the XYZ business for a long time, and there are about 30 different customers of mine right now who I would really love to call and tell about your product. And you might say,
that sounds really interesting.
so how fast can you get here?
We'll have to set up another interview.
Yeah, like, could you come today and bring the list with you? Yeah, exactly. And that's another thing. So people who go on interviews, on the one hand, they have to make themselves look irresistible.
Yes.
You know, when I tell people who go on an interview or on a date, I tell them the same advice. You have one job on a first date, you have one job at an interview, to be asked back. Doesn't mean if you don't want the job you have to say yes. It doesn't mean if you don't want to be with that person you have to say yes. But when you go the first time, the job is to be asked back again. Then you know you've closed it, you've sold it.
Right.
And then you can make an intelligent decision based on what you learned in that meeting. But if you spend the whole meeting thinking, do I like him? Don't I like him? Do I want to go on a date? Don't I want to go on a date? Is that the job for me? If you spend your whole time there, you blew it already. And no intention, as you said. That's your, you know, that's your theme song, right? Intention, no intention. So in this case, out of his intention, he calls the man back. He clarifies what he has to offer, apropos of what the man wants and needs. And when you can do that, I guarantee that most of the time you will get as many meetings as you want. And if you have the credentials, you'll be offered all the jobs.
I like the dangling carrot part. Yes. That's good.
And it's tricky. You don't want to give them all of the information and the phone numbers and everything, because then they don't really need you anymore.
Right.
But you can say, my contact at such and such, my best friend who works at such and such. And then they know, if it's my best friend who, or I used to, my uncle was the chairman of Bloomingdale's for 30 years, and I was in the fashion industry, and I would go on an interview to be the design director of a company or have them as a client for design. Well, I would say, my uncle at Bloomingdale's, well, there's no way they're going to call and get through to him. So I had it kind of handled. I would say, well, I can pick up the phone and I can call the buyer at Bloomingdale's or the merchandise manager at Bloomingdale's, and because my uncle, she'll see me. Well, there's like, if I didn't screw up the rest of the meeting, they were offering me the job,
Yes.
because I had everything else, and plus that they couldn't duplicate that.
Yeah.
So who do you know is a key part of life. It's very important.
It's true. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You ready for the next one?
Yes, next.
Okay. The next one. A daughter makes plans to help her mom cook for a special holiday. Then she discovers she's running late and calls her mom to say she'll be about an hour late and keeps her mom informed. When she finally arrives, her mom is pretty cold. What can she do? And she brings the food. She's actually cooked the food that she committed to, right?
And it's
so
good.
She's a little bit late, but she's cooked the food, and she's very proud and happy to be there, and just really gets the cold shoulder.
Okay, that's a great story, because we just passed through Easter and Passover, so
They're coming.
in homes all over.
They're still coming. It's Sunday is Easter, so they'll be able to use
We don't
this.
air till next week.
Oh, that's right.
So for everybody watching, they already had it. They're already full.
Got it.
Yeah.
That's right.
So this is a tricky one, because we can never control them, right?
Absolutely.
We have no way of controlling them. The only control we have, obviously, is we can opt in and out of relationships. But assuming this is her mother, so she's not opting out of that relationship with any real benefits. However, the control that we have, to the degree that we have it, is how we handle difficult situations. And this is a really good one. This is a good one in the sense, like the mother with the son whose relationship just ended. The mother has to be so subtle about this. She has to handle this so carefully and deftly. Here's the flip. Here's the daughter. The daughter loves her mother. She feels very sad that her need for appreciation and understanding wasn't met. She feels frustrated that her need for peace and warmth wasn't met when she arrived. And breathe. She feels maybe even confused that her need for inclusion and when she walks in the house and that kind of a warm reception wasn't offered, which she's used to having all these years. Again, breathe. And then she's calm and she's ready to give empathy to her mother, who's obviously upset to a certain degree. Mom, I so regret that I was much longer in making the food than I had expected, and I'm so grateful that you answered the phone when I called and that I could let you know that things were just taking a lot longer than I thought. So I can see that you were disappointed that I didn't get here at 1 o'clock as I planned. Is that right?
It's very frustrating. Yeah, I miss you, and I don't have enough time with you already. So it's hard when you're late, when we finally get to be together.
I'm just so sad that I couldn't get out of the office, and that I just couldn't walk out on them. There's just no way that my boss, would not take well to my just saying, well, happy holiday, and walking out the door. I got to go cook, it was one of those things. I just couldn't figure out how to work around it. I thought about making the stuff yesterday, but then it wouldn't be fresh and it wouldn't be delicious. So I just want you to know, Mom, I just so regret what happened. I just really regret it.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. That helps.
Yeah. And, maybe what we should do, because there are not that many long holidays, long weekend holidays in a year, maybe sometime we should just plan on me, taking a day off from work when I can, taking one of my holiday days, or planning on spending, Saturday and Sunday and Monday if there's a Monday too. And that way, even if I get there a little bit late the first day, we know that I'm staying longer. So maybe we should just do that.
That sounds like a fabulous idea. I like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm so just really regretting what happened. But, once I've had this job for a year and I don't need it on my resume anymore, right? All these stories tend to, combine,
Commingle.
right? Exactly. When worlds collide. So, yeah. And that's how you do it. It's what are her needs? What are your needs? You see that when you really hear somebody's needs and she really hears yours, it's so wonderful. It's so delicious. It's the intimacy that everybody's looking for. It's the intimacy everybody wants and rarely has. So
Being understood and heard.
yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. And particularly by their family members. That's where it's the
Yes.
trickiest, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's interesting. I was talking to a client and she was talking about 10 different family issues. And I said to her, well, there is just one very simple solution. If you don't want to master a relationship with this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, and it's a lot of work and, you're kind of exhausted, there is one other solution. And she lives in New York. And she said, really? What? And I said, I don't mean drugs. I mean, there's one real solution. I said, well, I don't live in New York anymore where my family is. I live in California. It's one very easy solution. So when you speak to everybody, you're really paying attention, you're really conscious. If you choose to, you know what everyone's needs are, you know how to create peace. I'm sure everybody in my family, when they talk about me, if they do, they say how much I've changed.
Yes.
Because, the small windows, you can do it. You can be completely compassionate and caring and empathetic and sweet and peaceful in small, blocks of time.
It takes practice.
Yeah. But it's still even, I invented a lot of this stuff, and still I would not want to have to be around people that I consider very difficult for days and days.
Right.
That would be
Right.
hell.
Yes.
Even the most skilled mediator, negotiator, peaceful communicator, loving-hearted soul, still, after a couple of hours of being pounded, you just still want to run screaming from the room, Okay, so we're not talking about superhuman efforts, and as Mary said earlier, you pick your battles. You really have to pick those times when you're not willing to have a battle. You pick your peace.
You pick your piece. It's true. It's true.
That's the deal.
Yeah. It's a good way to look at it.
Perfect. So who else do we have?
So
that
our
we
next
can,
one, there's an example of two older men who are brothers. The older is having a lot of trouble with day-to-day chores and errands, but he just won't ask for help because it's not his nature. He does it all, doesn't really want anyone to help, and there's a part of him too that doesn't believe that anybody else can do it as well. That's a big part of, not having other people do it. And can his brother jump in without being met with resistance because his brother wants to?
That's such a wonderful story, such a wonderful example, because in Santa Barbara, Santa Barbara used to be called the place for the newlywed and the nearly dead, right?
Yes. Yes. Is it still? It's not anymore? Okay. What is
I
it now?
I haven't heard people actually describe it that way, but it doesn't look very different. Well, yeah, the newlywed are no longer here. They're gone. They're gone. So this kind of a story about older people is even more poignant, because I have people who are in their 20s, 30s, 40s, who are my clients, who tell me that, they don't like to ask for help. They want to do it all themselves. I mean, who doesn't? Except that at some point in time, if we live long enough, we're going to need some kind of help.
That's very true.
At some point in time, if we live long enough, we're going to need it. Now, I've never broken a limb. I don't know. Have you?
Nope.
Okay, so we're we're very lucky. But my friend's son, Arno,
Yep,
you know Arno.
I do.
So his wonderful son, Joss, I understand, just broke a knee, doing some athletic, feat, probably skiing or something. So, here's a young guy, a young, tremendously healthy guy, great guy. Now, suddenly, he needs help of some sort, right? And so this is the kind of story that no matter how old you are, no matter how active you are, think about it from the perspective either of being the younger brother who wants to help or being the older brother who doesn't want to accept help. And then let's do this role play, right?
Okay.
So again, we're going to remind you about the 6-part conversation. So Ari, if you would just put that up on the screen for a moment, if you would. And again, you've got self-empathy. I'm the younger brother. I have to make sure that I calm myself down. And then self-empathy into empathy. I've got to make sure that I absolutely understand all of his feelings and needs. Then when I express myself, I have to be very careful that he's calm and that he's really in a mood to listen to me. And in real life, it takes a lot longer than what Mary and I are demonstrating. And then he listens to me, self-expression. We make some sort of an arrangement for me to help him. And I have to make sure that it's a solution that he really wants and that I'm not pushing him. Because a lot of times it sounds like we've made an agreement in our own head, because it's an agreement we like, but they feel that we're demanding something of them. So thank you, Ari, and now let's do it.
Okay.
So let's say your name is Bob, and Bob, I would guess that it's a lot of work keeping up with the house and doing so many things now that your wife Doris isn't really up to being as active as she used to be. Is that right?
It's a lot. Yep, I've been doing it a long time. I'm used to it. Yeah.
But I would imagine, I know how I feel sometimes. Just the whole thought of, getting up and getting out and doing getting the lawnmower and, painting the trim once a year in the house, the windows, and making sure there aren't any termites and all this stuff. Making sure that the screen door doesn't slam. This stuff every year, I would just imagine that you also feel that it's very stressful and it's a lot of work. Is that right?
It is a lot of work. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
And I would guess that just all the weekly chores that you've been doing and the errands that you've been doing for you and Doris are starting to get to be a little bit much. Is that right?
It's getting harder. Yeah. I don't feel as energetic. I don't have the excitement and enthusiasm with me doing everything, and she can't do those things. It is really hard to have any downtime to just enjoy. Yeah.
I'm really glad you sold the boat, because now at least we have one boat instead of 2 boats, so it's just that much less, So I'm glad at least that we made that decision as a family, that we could take a little bit of pressure off you that way. And I'm just wondering, it just seems that there are a lot of things that I could do that would make it easier for you guys, that wouldn't require a lot of effort, and I'd sure like to do them, because when I see you feeling tired and I know how much you've got on your plate, I'm just wondering, there must be some things that I could do that would make life easier. Have you thought about that?
Boy, I haven't thought about that. But
would you be willing to? I know you like doing everything your way, and we've, had these conversations before, so I'm not pushing, but I'm just thinking if there's something that I could do that would be helpful to you and Doris, I would be thrilled. It would be great.
And what do you think you could do that might help? Do you have any?
Well, yeah, I go to the grocery store twice a week, every week, rain or shine.
I hate grocery shopping.
Beautiful.
It's very time consuming.
Yeah. Perfect, and I'm there already.
That could be very helpful.
Cool. Now, I know you don't do email, so if you could call me and read a grocery list to me over the phone, just leave the message and read it out loud, and we'll figure out the 2 days of the week that are best. I'm not attached to whatever days I go. It doesn't really matter.
Okay.
I can find time to go to the grocery store. And then I'll know that I have that message from you. So let's say we decide Monday and Thursday, just for argument's sake. Thursday because it's not everybody rushing on Friday for the weekend, and Monday because by the time Monday comes around, you've used up a lot of your food.
Okay.
So let's say we do it that way, right?
Sounds good.
Okay, fantastic.
That'd be a great start. Let's see how that goes.
Wonderful. Okay,
Yeah.
and listen, please ask Doris. I don't want to, step on anybody's toes, but please ask Doris if there are things that I can do for her, make it easier, and that will be less work for you.
That sounds
Because
great.
I know she's not driving anymore, so, be great.
I'll check with her. Yeah, and we'll make
You're
a
welcome.
list and we'll see how that goes. Thanks for offering.
Wonderful. Yeah, yeah. Now, what's interesting out of that role play, what's interesting is that, as Marshall Rosenberg says, when you do a role play, somehow, miraculously, you take on the energy of this person.
It's true.
And this one is actually a fabrication. This is a compilation of different people who've asked me different questions and kind of all sticking it together. But after that, I could feel how exhausted you were. I could feel my older brother, which doesn't exist in the world, I don't have one, and how, oh my God, he's so exhausted. It's a good thing I offered this. The guy, I just, after that, I'm like, I want to take a nap. You playing him, you probably felt really tired too, right?
Absolutely.
Good job.
And visualize it. It's a lot.
We're both going to take naps now. Okay. What's the next one we have?
The next one. What about an example where mom needs to get her son to school on time, and he loves basketball. He has 2 days where he's up early because he's self-motivated to go play basketball. But the rest of the time, 3 days a week, he's late. And they fight. So what options does she have to motivate him and get him to where it's not constantly a quarrel, which is exhausting for both of them?
This is great. I had a client a few years ago who's actually a mediator in another town. So don't try to figure out if you know this person. And she told me she had this huge problem getting her children up in the morning. So this is such a great story. So I said to her, just walk me through it. What do you do? Well, it turns out that what she did was she would wake up her kids 20 minutes before they had to wake up. So this is like what you don't do when you train a dog, right? What you don't want to do if you're training a dog is train a dog out in the middle of an open area where he could run anywhere you want and call his name because he hasn't been trained yet. And now you call his name and he doesn't come, and then you start chasing him. So now you've trained the dog that when you call his name, he's supposed to run away from you and you're supposed to chase him, right? It makes perfect sense. Yet, how do we train our children? So she would wake her kids up 20 minutes before they needed to wake up. Naturally, they're not stupid. They're not getting out of bed. They're going back to sleep. Then she comes back. Well, she has 2 children in 2 separate rooms. So one, she comes back 15 minutes later. He doesn't want to get up because he knows he's got 5 more minutes. The other one doesn't want to get up because she's exhausted because she was awakened 20 minutes early. I mean, the whole thing is like a bloodbath, right? So all I did in that case is I trained her to train them to set alarms. They were not babies. They were like, I don't know, 7 or 8 and 11, something like that. So first thing was to train them to have alarms. And with digital clocks, you could do it with young children. They don't even have to be able to tell time. It just says it, right? It says numbers. So she trained them to do that. She would come upstairs, and as soon at that time, and as soon as she heard the alarms go off, she would walk into one room, and she'd make sure the child was out of bed and walking into the bathroom, and she would stand there and make sure the other child was up and doing whatever it was. I think the kids shared a bathroom, and she just made sure nobody toppled back into bed, and it was peaceful and easy. Okay, now in this case, we have less of a problem because a couple of days a week, He loves basketball and he's getting up anyway, right?
So we know he can.
Yeah. Now we've got to find something to motivate him these other days, which is, I think we have to motivate him 3 days or 2 days, whatever. 3 days.
Yep.
Okay. So here's the quick role play. Honey, I know that you have been such a doll about getting up early on Tuesdays and Thursdays so that you get to the gym on time, you get to basketball practice on time, because you've got a really big, you're a big basketball star, so it's important to you. And I really appreciate that, because it makes life so much better for both of us. Those 2 days a week, we get along great, It's all right? Okay, so now, how can we think of a way that's going to motivate you to get up Monday, Wednesday, and Friday when you need to get up, so that you and I can just have peace together? Because you're so precious to me. I don't want us to fight, and I know you hate fighting. You just hate fighting. And you hate it when I remind you. You want it to be peaceful every day, right?
I do.
Yeah. So what could we do? Do you want me to help you go to sleep earlier the nights before you have to get up for the non-basketball stuff? Do you want me to make a special breakfast for you? What can I do that would really make it easier?
I think a special breakfast would motivate me.
Terrific. So how special are we talking? What would you like?
Well, I love bacon.
I knew you were going to say bacon. And there you are.
And the smell of bacon gets me out of bed.
I am telling you, I knew it was that. Okay. So that is perfect. Mary, I cannot thank you enough. You are just fantastic. Having you was just, it was like a dream. Amazing. So please visit maryelliott.org, and that's Elliott is 2 L's and 2 T's. And as I said, if you're in Santa Barbara, Mary is an extraordinary yoga teacher. She does private sessions, which are fabulous for everyone who doesn't want to go dragging around to a yoga studio at the times they think it's convenient, because you are much more flexible. And she also is a spectacular massage therapist and has started this new aquatic therapy. And you know me, you know that my column is in Santa Barbara Family Life magazine every month, and moving into, I think, the 8th year now. And you know that this show is on usually the first Tuesday of every month and repeats, and we can't wait to see you next month. Thank you, and enjoy